Did you know that 92% of men will never build that aesthetic physique that they're working so hard for? I've helped over 500 guys get to that 10 to 12% body fat, not just for a holiday, not just for a photo shoot, but actually get there and maintain it year round. I myself was stuck in the cycle. I could get into shape. I'd aggressive cardio, aggressive dieting phase, but I'd crash mentally, physically, and I'd never be able to maintain shape for more than 2 to 3 weeks. And that's exactly where I see most guys. They're in this constant cycle of getting into shape, falling out of shape. And what needs to happen is you need to follow a very specific blueprint. Once you follow this blueprint, it is so easy to actually get in shape and maintain shape year round. And this is exactly what I'm going to talk you through right here. There's a specific framework that needs to be followed. So get your pen, get your paper, take notes, and let's get into it. The first thing that we need to do is that physique roadmap. We need to get very clear as to where you're currently at right now. If you're 15% plus body fat, you've too much fat. You're out of shape. Okay, it's as simple as that. You need to analyze your current physique, where you're at right now, and we're like, okay, we want to build an aesthetic physique. So how does our training need to be set up? How does our nutrition need to be set up? But most importantly, what are the phases that we need to go through? This is the key. This is number one. First phase, let's take into consideration you're training, but you're carrying too much body fat. You're 15% plus. You first then need to prime the body, where you lay the foundations. You're in a position where you sit your food at maintenance, you have a baseline of cardio and output, and then from there, what you can do is you can essentially build muscle, reduce body fat for this very short, unique period of time before you then transition into a dieting phase. So you go into the priming phase, you then go into the dieting phase. This is where the main focus is to preserve the muscle tissue that you currently have right now, but to get to that 10% body fat. Okay, once you then get to that 10% body fat, the key, this is where most people mess up. I've seen it happen so often. People push so hard, their output is high, their nutrition is low, which it will be towards the back end of a dieting phase. But then what happens? They think they've achieved the goal. I'm shredded, let's go. I'm the man. And then next thing you know it, 2 to 3 weeks later, they're out of shape. You need to reverse diet back up. You need to bring the food up back to maintenance position, and you need to bring the output back down, the cardio back down, the steps back down. Whatever you end up finishing your dieting phase off, you then need to slowly reverse back out of that, okay? And once you nail this part, you're in dreamland. I had a client, he just finished up his dieting phase on 2,000 calories. 6 weeks later, he's on 3,000 calories. He's visibly leaner, fuller, and he's now vascularity coming up through his abs, which he didn't have because he's actually more food now, less fatigue, more fullness to the physique, and it's so easy for him to maintain year round because he's on 1,000 more calories. That's the key when it comes to the reverse phase. Then you go into that lean gaining phase or performance phase. Again, depending on you and your current position. What I like to do is go into a slight surplus then. So you're still staying at least 12% body fat, but you're in a slight surplus and you're focusing on gaining lean muscle tissue. Building an aesthetic physique, getting those cap shoulders, the capped arms, the nice V taper. That's the look, the beach body look. That's the one that birds go mad for as well, by the way. But that's the aesthetic physique. We don't want these big, puffy, puffed up bodybuilder looks. It's just not aesthetic. We want to get to a position where we can maintain a nice shape year round, even if we are gaining, even if we are in a slight surplus. Building lean muscle tissue. We want to maintain a good physique. So that's the roadmap that we need to create straight off the bat. We then look at your nutrition, your diet. We want to be consuming whole foods, like calories in, calories out. People say just hit your macros, but the difference between the quality of the food that you consume in terms of inflammation, in terms of, you ever see people that they're lean but their face is kind of puffy? It's down to the foods that they're consuming. You want to be eating whole foods at least 90% of the time. You need to set up your macros. Your macros is the most important thing. You know, we can be doing all the training, we can have the perfect roadmap, we can be eating healthy, but if your macros is not dialed in to you, specifically to you, your goals, your needs, your height, your weight, your body composition, you're pissing against the wind. And this is where I see so many people mess up. Most guys are putting in 80% of the work. It's that 20% you need to dial in. It's having the structure that we spoke about. It's having your macros on point. If you go in and you're giving 60, 70% to your diet and to your macros, what do you think is going to happen when it comes to actually getting into shape? You're not going to get the results that you want. I see it so often. People are in a dieting phase, but they're just not sticking to their calorie deficit each and every day. So they're dropping body fat, then a slight surplus, dropping slight surplus, and then it's just like you're in this consistent yo-yo and you're never actually looking the same. Whereas if you can go through the 4 phases, you get to that 10 to 12% body fat, you reverse back up, you can then have a lot more flexibility. But if you're consistently trying to get in, like, it breaks my heart, guys. People that are in the gym for over 6 months trying to get in shape, but at the end of the 6 months, they look the exact same. Like, what are people actually doing? It's because you're not being disciplined with your diet. Once you get disciplined with your diet for a short period of time, you've done the work. You can then easily maintain it. So you need to make sure your macros is absolutely on point and just get out of the dieting phase. We don't want to be in the dieting phase for too long. You don't want to be in a deficit for too long, because if we're in a deficit for too long, what happens? Your hormones crash, your testosterone levels dip, your energy dips, your sleep goes to shit. That's what happens. You being in a deficit for too long has a lot of negative effects. So that's why the physique roadmap is important, because you set a start date and end date for the dieting phase. You do it and you reverse back out. You get all your hormones back into the green. You're feeling physically better, mentally better. You've a lot more energy, you've less fatigue. But if you're in a dieting phase for too long, you're going to crash, you're going to burn. And that's the key. Get your macros on point, get in, get out. And back to that maintenance or into that slight surplus. Your diet setup then, it's like figure out, okay, what's actually going to work for you long term. Don't just set up your diet in a way that it's like, I see this so often as well. A really restrictive, rigid approach with your diet, because discipline, willpower, but it's just not sustainable for you. It's like following the bodybuilder approach that you're eating every 2 hours out of lunch boxes, and you have to run out in between work or between business calls or sales calls, you're scuffing food down. You need to create a structure. Okay, so whether it's 3 main meals, 4 main meals, maybe it is 5 main meals, maybe it's 3 meals and 2 snacks. Whatever it might be, you need to analyze your day, analyze your business, your career, your family life, and be like, okay, this is going to be realistic for me long term. I can fit 3 meals in per day with a pre and a post workout snack or a protein shake later in the evening. So get very, very clear as to the structure that's going to work for you long term. You need to analyze your day and then basically build out the setup that will work for you. Key, because if you're following an approach like a ketogenic approach or a bodybuilding approach with 6 meals a day or whatever it might be, it's just not going to last long term. And what good is it pushing so hard for a 6 to 12 week period, getting into okay shape and then falling out of shape again because it's not a sustainable approach? That's not what we're doing here, guys. We're getting into shape, as I said, and we're staying in shape year round. So you need to set up your diet correctly. And if that means you need to meal prep 2 to 3 times per week, you meal prep. If you get a meal prep company in, if you get a chef in, if your wife does it, whatever it might be, you need to come up, excuse me, with a system that's actually going to work for you long term. Water intake as well. I see so many people lacking and just walking around dehydrated. At least, depending on especially climate, like right now I'm in Spain, it's hot, 4 liters minimum a day. And that's with electrolytes, that's with salt in my meals as well to make sure that I'm staying hydrated. My electrolyte balance doesn't stays balanced. Water. If you're going around dehydrated, mentally you're not going to be as sharp. You're going to be in the gym, you're not going to get that fullness to the physique. Your workouts aren't going to be as good. You're going to be dehydrated, and just mentally and physically you're not going to be all there. Your energy is going to crash. I see so many people dehydrated, and when it comes to work, business, if you're dehydrated, mentally you're just not going to be able to concentrate like you would when you're hydrated. It's such a simple thing. But I see most people I would say the majority of people are walking around dehydrated. That's not even joking. And in social occasions, it's like, if you are a very sociable person, if you have business meetings with I have a lot of guys that travel for business meetings. They go from like London to Dubai over to America. We need to have systems built out when you are traveling, whether that's meeting clients, you're going out eating steaks, even if you have to, I know a lot of the guys, they have drinks when they meet their clients. So it's like having lower calorie drinks than higher calorie drinks because, yeah, you don't want to lose a business meeting because you're the boring guy who won't have a few drinks with your clients. I get that. So it's just like setting up, whether it's either having some 0.0 beers or else just having some like slimline tonics and spirits, just to minimize the amount of calories. And then the meals out. You have systems that you have meals that you or restaurants that you can go to when you're in the different locations or when you're meeting clients or when you're out and about on the go. You understand how to pick things up, how to adjust your diet depending on the situations that you're in, whether it's travel, social occasions, birthday parties, events, whatever it might be. You need to make sure that you have systems built out there as well and that you pre-plan in advance. That's your nutrition. Again, this is all relating back to building that aesthetic physique, because if our diet isn't built out in a way that we can sustain it year round, you're going to get into shape and out of shape. This is a lifelong setup, right? Once you do this once, you have it for life and it's done. And then we move on to the training side of things. So again, your training, how you set up your training, what kind of style of training are you doing? Like, I know there's a lot of high rocks hybrid stuff now at the moment, which is great. I've done some myself, but if you're in a position that you actually want to build an aesthetic physique and you don't have muscle tissue already, you're not going to build an aesthetic physique doing high rocks. Let me just tell you that straight up. If you're doing a shit ton of running, it's going to be very hard. If you're doing a lot of conditioning work, it will be hard. It's not impossible, but to actually build an aesthetic physique, you want to build the aesthetic physique first, have the muscle tissue, and then you can transition into the different style of approach, different training styles. Apologies. For me, I do boxing 3 times per week. I've done multiple high roxes. I've done, half marathons, stuff like that. But the first thing that needs to happen is you need to build that aesthetic physique, and then you can layer on the stuff on top of it. Plus, when you're doing boxing, when you're doing high rocks, when you're doing half marathons, it's a lot more impressive when you're fucking jacked going around the place. So get the body number one. And this is where the training comes in. Weight training at least 3 to 5 times per week is non-negotiable. Heavy compound movements, isolation work, and with building an aesthetic physique, like, okay, when we actually analyze a physique, what do we want? Cap shoulders to give you that nice wide V taper, a nice narrow waist, which is obviously going to come from reducing body fat, but then arms. Getting the arms nice and jacked, traps, upper chest, all your body essentially. But we want to have that wide look, okay? So we want to prioritize a little bit more the shoulders, the upper chest, and the back, and then obviously hit the legs as well. But set it up in a way that you're prioritizing the show muscles, we can call them. Arms, shoulders, upper chest, and nice wide back, okay? So that's the way we want to set up your diet. Cardio, I'd say year-round minimum 2 cardio sessions per week. Just for a longevity standpoint, it doesn't have to be anything intense, but from a longevity standpoint, at least 2 cardio, 20 to 30 minutes per week. But then towards, like, if we're in a dieting phase, we might need to increase that. We might need to do close to 6. I've done 7 cardio sessions before as well. But again, it's to get to the position, and then when we reverse out, we can bring it back down. So you have to understand the roadmap is the most important thing. You don't just go, I'm dieting now, 6 cardio sessions, 1,500 calories. It won't last. Each week, you need to analyze your physique and then make adjustments, depending on the data that you get back, your weight, your waist, your energy, your hormones, your visual look. Then you start tweaking things, whether it's your training, your nutrition, your output, your supplements, whatever it might be. There's tweaks that need to be made, like on a weekly basis, depending on the feedback. So never think it's just one blueprint. I could come in here, guys, and I could just say, you train like this, you do this, do this for 6 weeks. And yeah, it's all well and good. And you probably will lose a lot of body fat. But you then don't understand, okay, I need to then get out of this phase. I need to then go into a lean gaining phase. Otherwise, yeah, I can do this for 6 weeks. It might be perfect for my body. I might reduce a load of body fat, but then your hormones crash. You're feeling mentally fatigued, tired all day. This is like actually how you build it out correctly. And you make adjustments on a weekly basis. Again, follow a structure that works for you. Whether that's 3 or 5, what can you actually commit to? And sometimes it might be 5 you start off with, and then when you get into that final phase, it's 3. So again, it depends on you, on your life setup, your business, how much time you can commit, your career. You need to analyze your day and again, build it out. And then steps, 10K minimum per day is what I would recommend 100%. Again, from a longevity standpoint, from a body composition standpoint, and just for how low intensity it is for the benefits that you can get out of steps. Like, let's say you're smashing a load of hybrid style training. Yes, you might burn a lot of calories there and then, but it's going to cause a lot of fatigue. And then with that fatigue, your appetite might spike up. So you have to be very, very mindful with that. With steps, it's low intensity, meaning it's not going to cause too much fatigue to you and your body. And then you can prioritize your strength. You're going to be full of energy. Then for your weight training sessions, because your weight is what's actually going to build the muscle, maintain the shape while you diet down, and give you that aesthetic look, not burning a load of calories. It's not about burning a load of calories. Yes, we can use it as a tool to help us get into better body composition, but your weight is the number one most important thing that you cannot neglect, and that needs to be prioritized. And you need to be training to failure as well. None of this bullshit, like, that's bullshit. You need to go in and train hard, train to failure. If you're not training hard, you're not training to failure, and you're in a deficit, you're going to end up looking like a string bean. Simple as that. You need to be training hard. Then we look at our recovery side of things. You can only train as hard as you can recover. Sleep, minimum 7 hours. I'd say 8 hours, but minimum 7 hours per night. I'd say 8, to be honest. But I know certain people can't always get that. 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours is what I would recommend. And making sure that you're actually getting good quality sleep as well. So like I have an Oura ring, which I would massively recommend. I had the Whoop before, but I think the Oura ring is just a little bit better to gauge, gauge your deep sleep, your REM sleep, and making sure that you're actually getting good quality sleep is the most important thing. So how does that happen? It starts in the morning when you wake up first thing, getting some daylight exposure, making sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day, making sure that the quality of food that you're consuming is good quality food and you're digesting the food correctly, that you're not eating too close to bed, that you're not drinking caffeine too close to bed. At least 8 hours cut it. That you're winding down in the evening, that you're not like high cortisol just before sleep, doing like work task or like doing crazy amount of training just before you try to go to sleep. Full going to bed, making sure that you have your supplementations, your magnesium glycinate, such a good supplement when it comes to sleep. There's like a lot of key factors. So your sleep doesn't come down to just lying in bed for 8 hours. It's your day. It's your training. Training earlier in the day is going to help with your sleep. Setting up your circadian rhythm by getting daylight in the morning. It's like all these things, everything's like a flywheel. I always say it's like a flywheel. Your training, your nutrition, your sleep, your supplementation, everything plays into each other. People are like, what's the most important thing? Everything is just as important as each other. Everything interconnects with everything. So it's like everything, because if you're not eating well and you're digesting shit and then it's affecting your sleep and then that's going to affect your training, then that's going to affect your body composition, then that might affect your confidence. And it's just like, it just goes around in this circle. So you need to be very on it with everything. As simple as that. Supplementations, and then like sauna, ice baths is great as well, even for the mental side of things. But like from a recovery standpoint, inflammation standpoint, ice bath, so good. Sauna, even from a longevity standpoint, it reduces the more sauna sessions you can do per week, it actually reduces your risk of cardiovascular related diseases. Depending on the more that you do per week, it reduces the amount of chances you have of those diseases, essentially cardiovascular related diseases. Supplementations then, performance, we're going to go with creatine, EAAs, electrolytes, probiotic for your gut, vitamin D, C, B12 for your immune system, lion's mane and L-theanine then for your cognitive function before work. I'm not going to touch too much off supplementations. These are just like the cherry on top of everything else, of top of your training, your nutrition, your recovery. These are going to give you those extra couple of percentages. But yeah, we won't dive too into that. They're the ones, the staples that I would recommend. And then your calendar setup. This is the key. So if we're looking to build an aesthetic physique, we need to have the roadmap, we need to have our training, we need to have our nutrition dialed in, our recovery dialed in, our supplementation, but we need to show up and actually do the work on a daily basis, okay? And that comes down to having your calendar set up. You need to prioritize, okay, when are you training? Know what days you're training. Don't leave it a chance. Is it first thing in the morning? Is it Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Know a time and a place where you're going to be training. You have the exact training split that you're going to be training. You know what you're training on those specific days, the cardio sessions that you're doing on those specific days. You plan in if you have to have meal prep. You plan in when you're going to meal prep. You're planning when you go for a food shop. So you're not opening up the fridge and you don't have fucking food in the fridge and you're lacking on protein one day because you weren't prepared. Setting up your calendar in a way that you're going to be prepared is going to be the key. So you set up your calendar, map it all out, put everything in, and you do that on every Sunday, plan the week in advance, and then you can't miss, you just show up. So that's how you build an aesthetic physique. The training that needs to happen, the style of training, how to set up your diet, the 4-phase roadmap that you need to go through, the recovery, the supplementations, and the calendar setup. Get them all boxed off, dial everything in, and you will build an aesthetic physique.